Thank you, Adi. Thank you so much. It's great to be here with everyone. A lot of friends, familiar faces. It's lovely to be with, and a lot of new friends too. I look forward to interacting with all of you. I just want to say to Oded and Hanan that I hope what we'll do today will raise up Miriam, your mother's neshama, her soul, Ezrat Hashem. And I hope, especially at this special time of year, we'll all be raised up by it, and all of our loved ones. We obviously so close to Yom Kippur, we can really feel it already, a lot of us. And I have to own that even as somebody who's been very privileged to sit and learn Torah for a few years, to become a rabbi and so on, Yom Kippur is still very mysterious. Yom Kippur still feels like a big question mark every time I come back around to it. So it's so many dimensions. It's not actually always so obvious to me what my avodah, what my exact work of it is. And we're gonna connect with a particular side of it tonight. For me tonight, I'm in Israel. That I hope will be helpful. I hope will be something that you can carry with you into your Yom Kippur. That can help you prepare, and maybe even you might want to actually bring it into the day itself. So a big focus of Yom Kippur, as you may know if you're familiar with the traditional liturgy, is confession, saying, I did this, I did that. The mistakes we made in the year. Ashamnu Bagadnu is how the Hebrew begins. And Rabbi Abraham Isaac Cook, the first Ashkenazi chief rabbi of Israel, points out something. He's actually talking about a different kind of confession when he says that. He's talking about the confession that was said in the temple when we brought some of our offerings, certain first fruit offerings and tithe offerings. When people brought them, they had to make a different kind of confession, not a confession of what I did wrong, but a confession of who we are and where we are and how we are in a positive way. And the Torah actually gives a text for it. This is all talked about in the Torah, in the book of Deuteronomy, in the parsha called Ki Tavo, when you come to the land, quite close to Yom Kippur. So it's just a few weeks ago, we actually read it in the traditional annual Torah cycle. And Rav Kook says, it's important, of course, we hold ourselves to account, and we have this ritual every year of looking at what we did wrong. That's very important. But also, he says, there's a very important need to recognize what we've done right. And so often we can be harder on ourselves than on anyone else. And he's giving us advice for building a healthy container, for building a healthy practice, really, for looking at things with a little bit of compassion, a little bit of objectivity, not just beating ourselves up. So we're going to sit in silence shortly, and the intention, the kavanah I'm going to offer, which is from Rav Kook, is that we think about the things that we've done right this year. And doing them right, by the way, doesn't mean you did them perfectly, or that you succeeded completely, or that your intention was always 100% pure, because all of the faces I can see in front of me and the beautiful little Zoom boxes are the faces of human beings. So nobody did anything perfectly and got everything completely right, but we all tried, right? We all had moments this year where we tried to make something a little bit better. And it's so important to hold ourselves with care and to recognize that, and to nurture those seeds of goodness, so they continue to thrive. And so that when we do also reflect on the mistakes we made and things we could have done better, we are holding it in the proper perspective with a compassion that's healthy and realistic. So that's my intention for us today, to first we'll just ground ourselves by settling into our bodies. I'll guide us a little bit for that. And then, as I say, I'll introduce that intention of thinking about the good things we tried to do in the past year. So make yourself comfortable. If you have an anchor that you regularly use for meditation, something that will help you focus, you're very welcome to use whatever that regular anchor is. And if you're not sure what to use, for a lot of people, it helps to find a place in the body that's fairly neutral. So it could be the soles of your feet, or perhaps even the backside in contact with the cushion or chair. And that can be your anchor, your object of meditation. Whatever anchor you've chosen, our job is to pay compassionate attention to it, exploring it with loving curiosity. And if anything should happen, any kind of distraction, any thought or anything else arising takes us away from it, just gently bring ourselves back to it. And keep us settled and focused. Keep coming back to the place in the body, whatever anchor you've chosen. And what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce the intention that our anchor is going to still be our anchor, which means we want to keep a good chunk of our attention with it, somewhere between 50 and 80%. And if we get too lost and distracted and we just need to come back completely to the anchor, that's fine too, that happens. Because the intention, it's going to introduce thinking and imagining and all beautiful things to do, but things that can sometimes lead us to get lost. So trying to remain mostly focused on the anchor, I'm going to introduce the question, what did we do good or right this year? Or try to? And you can answer in words or images. You might want to imagine yourself doing those things. See yourself in those moments. If you choose to do that, you might want to really let yourself enjoy the details, how it felt, how you looked, how your body, your posture, your face was. And notice, where's your anchor? Where's our attention in relation to it? Can we remain somewhat grounded and focused and keep coming back to it? Notice if you want to just stay with that one example that may have come to mind of something you did that was good this year. Or if it made you think of some others you might want to go through, some other people or situations. Remember to be very compassionate, give ourselves points for effort. It's really what matters. Both in Judaism, in our tradition, it's very clear. That's really what matters. And in life, nobody ever gets everything perfect. What do we try and do? And if we get lost, we're not sure what to do, we can come back to the anchor, exploring it with compassion and curiosity. We can stay there as long as we want to. Whenever you feel ready, you can open up to the question again. What did I do this year? It was good. And we're gonna bring the practice gently to a close. I'm gonna hand it back to Adi in a moment for Mourner's Kaddish. As folks come back, just gonna mention that if anybody would like the sources I mentioned at the beginning, the teachings from Rav Kook, this is based on, and also a beautiful sample of a positive confession by one of my teachers, Rabbi Avi Weiss, then you can please be very welcome to be in touch with me. You can contact me on Facebook, or I'll put my email in the chat, there you go. Or for those folks watching on YouTube, you can contact me through the Applied Jewish Spirituality website, Applied Jewish Spirituality, through the contact page there. And I'll be happy to send you all the relevant teachings and sources about the practice we did today. Thanks, Adi.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Silverstein, for that beautiful meditation. At this time, I'm going to open the chat up, or try to. For our regulars, we know sometimes I have a hard time with that. As we prepare for the Mourner's Kaddish, I encourage you to share the names of those who you're thinking about. I'm going to allow people to unmute themselves during the Mourner's Kaddish to join me. It looks like we are having some problems with the chat, so my apologies about that. We encourage you to join us and support those in mourning in our community in the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal
Gadol v'kadash v'rabba v'yama dvra v'tei
V'chayachon v'yamachon Ayed Chol Beit Yisrael La'agala V'Katari V'imru Amen B'Shmei Rabba Marach Arvid Ramam V'Maseh V'Tadar V'Talei V'Tadar Shmei V'Shabrichu Elah Le'elah Mimkom V'chata V'shirata V'shbachata V'nechmata V'alma V'imru Amen Hishlama Rabba Mim Shemaya Chaim Aleinu V'Al Yisrael V'imru Amen V'aseh Shalom V'Mamav V'aseh Shalom Aleinu V'Al Yisrael
Amen.
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 Thank you to all of you for being a part of this community, for joining us today. At this time, I am going to invite all of you to ask any questions that you have, anything that came up for you in that meditation that was meaningful, that you would like to share. Unfortunately, again, I am having some problems with the chat, but if you message me or Rabbi Silverstein directly, we will do our best to get to any and all questions that we can in the time that we have left in today's meditation. I'll just launch, Rabbi Silverstein, by just saying how I found your teaching today to be really, really moving in a really personal way. The idea of striving for perfection and trying to be the best version of yourself, while also understanding that you're not always going to hit those marks, and that we can't expect ourselves to always hit those marks. I mean, that really, really resonated with me. And so there's not really a question there. It's just more, I just wanted to share that, that I think that, especially in this world that we're living in, where we're still struggling with the pandemic, that's very, very real. And to understand that we're all doing our best, and sometimes we're not going to hit everyone's needs, but including our own, but we're going to do our best to do that, is, I think, a really beautiful teaching that we can carry with us, especially in this new year.
Thank you, Ali. Something I didn't mention in the instructions, which occurred to me after the silent period has started, so I want to say it now for those of you still here. most practices are different every day we do them, right? So if if this is the first time you do something like this, it'll be different if you try it again tomorrow, and it'll be different if you try again a year from now. And I want to say, sometimes when I try and do this practice, I just don't want to I don't want to let myself think of anything good. I'm just in a place where I'm giving myself a hard time. And I just want to normalize that for anyone else who just face that kind of resistance, where, sometimes we all just look at ourselves through a lens that isn't very positive. And just want to say that's totally, totally okay and normal. And, if that was the kind of experience you had today, I'm sorry, but at the same time, that's part of the practice. That's actually why we do the practice, is to kind of meet ourselves at that edge, where sometimes it's more easy and sometimes it's less easy. And sometimes, like with any meditation, sometimes it's la la la, bunny rabbits and bliss, and sometimes it's really meeting ourselves in the most difficult places. So just want to normalize that for anyone who had any of those experiences or anything in between. Adi, is it okay to ask people to speak who raised their hand, or how do you want to do it?
Just because we are still on YouTube, and I don't want to have people showing up on YouTube if they're not comfortable. I would encourage you, if you have a question, to write it in the chat, to write it to either myself or Rabbi Silverstein. Yeah, that would be how I would encourage that. I have a message here from Carol Yano that I think is really beautiful. I started to think of mitzvahs, but quickly my thoughts turned to all things I did to nurture my soul this year, including tuning into IJS offerings. Thank you. And I think I'm no rabbi, but personally there is, from my perspective, an important part of Judaism, that is the things that you do for self-care. The oxygen mask on the airplane, putting it on yourself before you can put it on the person next to you. You can't help someone if you're not helping yourself as well. And I just think there's something beautiful there.
Yeah, thank you, Adi. You're absolutely right. Rabbi or not, you don't need to be a rabbi to know that. I actually want to say, for me, what comes up in response to that is that I think in a way that's the most important thing, because in a way that's the only thing we really have any control over. Like I can't always control or predict what I'm going to do or what anyone else is going to do. But if I am doing my best to nurture the vessel that I am, then, I'm doing everything I can to make it more likely that in any given situation, I'll respond a bit more skillfully. And, what else do we have control of ultimately, really, right? So, that's a really, really important place where we can give ourselves a pat on the back if we've done some of that, and maybe set intentions around that for the coming year.
Yeah, I think that Tish writes, you can't give water out of an empty well, and I think there's really something. I'm not receiving a lot of questions. I am receiving a lot of really positive feedback that I'll just continue to share. This practice from Karen, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the last name, Huberman. This practice has been so nurturing for me. Thank you. So rarely do I look at what I've done right or near okay. It's very easy to be hard on ourselves.
Right.
I think that resonates with people, especially in times of isolation.
Actually, I received a couple of private messages about that too. About people asked about perfectionism and similar things. So I'm gonna say something about that, which is the beautiful teaching. Some of you have heard me teach before, may have heard me teach this before. It's a very important classic teaching and a favorite of mine. It's from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, and it's actually become one of his most celebrated teachings. It's called the Azamra Torah. It's part of his masterpiece, Likutei Maharan, his writings. And he says in it that we have to really, really try hard, diligently, consistently, over and over again, every day, to find and to see and to feel and to appreciate the goodness in ourselves. And just exactly as I was saying before, some days it might be actually okay and easy to do that. But a lot of the time, and he really knew about this, he really struggled with this and had to work very hard himself. A lot of the time, we really have to dig deep to do that. And he said, even when you do it, and actually he was doing a very similar practice to the one we just did, because he said, let's say you think about something you did that was good, right? Let's say you think, oh, remember that time I helped that person or whatever it was. He said, you're going to have a voice in your head that says, it wasn't so good. You just did it to oppress someone. You just did it, for whatever, selfish motivation you did it. Because, we all have that voice in our head, whether it's quiet or loud today. You didn't really succeed. It wasn't that great, etc., etc. So he says, even though that voice exists, and even though it's true that none of us is perfect, like I was saying in the intro, even though none of us did anything perfectly, nonetheless, he says there's a good point, a nakuda tova, a point of goodness in everyone, and it just doesn't go away. It's there no matter what, no matter how much we lose touch with it, no matter how much we hide it. Actually, it's relevant every day, but I think it's especially relevant on Yom Kippur. It's about purity. Yom Kippur is about coming back to that place of purity and goodness inside ourselves, about forgiving ourselves, obviously forgiving others and asking for forgiveness from others, and standing before the divine mystery in the same way. But how can we expect any of that other stuff to happen with the divine mystery or other people if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to contact the goodness in ourselves, to appreciate it? And that's what this practice is. And that's what Rabbi Nachman's saying, that it's hard. We have to get past all that resistance and try every day to, it's a muscle. We have to use it regularly to do that. So, for those people who asked about those challenges is, perfectionism and holding ourselves to impossible standards, or, not giving ourselves space to think about the goodness in ourselves. It's important. It's really important, and it will then percolate outwards. It will echo outwards to how we treat other people as well. It's really how we treat other people and how we treat ourselves are so interconnected. And I don't think there's a before or after. One dictates the other. I think they both really relate to each other. So I hope that's helpful.
No, I think that's beautiful. I have a question here that I think is a great question from Pancho Mulongeni. Is being Orthodox more frum equated with being more perfect? I've heard this from different people who are frum with regards to my interest in Judaism, since I was not raised Jewish. And I just think there's something worth reflecting on there, that, there is no perfect in Judaism. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it, is the diversity of opinions and perspectives, in my opinion. And I was wondering if you had any insight into that question.
It's a big path. It's a very broad path that contains many paths within it, and they intersect and they crisscross and they intertwine, and who knows what one person's path is, ultimately, except between that person and the Ein Sof, the Infinite One. It's such a mystery. I'm familiar with the discourse. That person was asking, said, some people said, being more Orthodox is automatically more right. I'm certainly familiar with people that think that way and talk that way. I understand why people do. That's speaking from within a model that's been around for a long time. But it's not how I personally see it. I really see everyone has to find their own way and their own relationship with every aspect of Judaism. And really, Rav Kook, who I mentioned before, who really gave us this teaching about the positive confession, about recognizing the good in ourselves. He really put an enormous emphasis on freedom. He really says, it's at the heart of Judaism. He wasn't the first to say this. Maimonides also said this, but Rav Kook kind of updated Maimonides for the 20th century in this respect. We said that ultimately, if we're not freely choosing our path in every respect, it just doesn't mean as much. If we're doing it because somebody else is telling us we have to, it doesn't carry the ultimate meaning of the path that, if we really choose it for ourselves. And again, this is a time of year for that kind of consideration. It's very relevant. One of the names of this time of year is Yomei Ratzon, the days of Ratzon. Ratzon can be translated as will or desire. And classically, when we call it that, what we're talking about is we're saying we hope that God desires our prayers. We hope this is a time when God is favorable. Ratzon also means it's favorable. So we hope that God favorably receives our prayers. But the Hasidic reread of Yemei Ratzon, again in Rabbi Nachman and others, is that this is a time for working on the question of what do we want? What is our desire? Because that really is the key compass that's going to dictate a lot of other things. And Kabbalah and the Kabbalistic model of what a person is, desire, Ratzon, comes first before anything else. Everything else, your thoughts, your speech, your actions, everything begins with what do I actually really want? And if we can just do a little bit of work around checking in with, where we're at with that, what is that we actually want, that can really serve us well beginning of this new year.
I think that is a beautiful note to end on. And I just want to say thank you so much, Rabbi Silverstein, for joining us today. It was perfect. What a great way to start the week. What a great week to start the year. So thank you so much. I hope to see you all same time tomorrow, where we'll have our executive director, Rabbi Josh Feigelson, right, back in this position. So that'll be good. I just thank you again, Rabbi Silverstein, for joining us. Thank you, all of you, for joining us.
Thanks, Adi. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
My pleasure. We'll see you all again tomorrow.